Welcome to the Performing Arts Series brought to you by the Kennedy Center and the Prince William Network. With me today is Shen Wei, Artistic Director of Shen Wei Dance Arts, which is a modern dance company based in New York.
Hello and welcome.
My name is Franz Pepper, and I work with Shen Wei as the Executive Director of his dance company. And I'd like to begin by asking you, why did you name your company Shen Wei Dance Arts?
I'm not just only interested in dance, but also I'm interested in visual arts, theater, music. That's why I like to use all art forms to support my dance. That's why I call Shen Wei Dance Arts.
So when you create your dance, when you think about the choreography, you're not only thinking about the movement on the stage. You're thinking about all the visual elements. You're thinking about the costumes, which you create. You're thinking about the sets, which you also create, and the lighting, the makeup. You're also thinking about how the audience is going to react to what is on the stage, what kind of a feeling the audience is going to have afterwards. And so it's really a holistic approach and an interdisciplinary approach to choreography. There are many different kinds of dance in the world. There's ballet, modern, jazz, hip-hop, belly dancing, salsa, just to name a few. Every culture creates its own way to express itself through movement and dance. Why do you think dance is an important art form?
I think dance is really interesting to me because we're human beings and we use our body as a toy to play around and transform our body to a piece of art, and so powerful and also so alive, and also a lot of creativity is from our brain, but also use our body to create another dimension to change our body and see how our body move, and that affect not people to thinking, oh, this movement is different the movement we usually do in real life, and make people thinking, make people to find another possibilities of body what we can do.
Yes, often we forget that dance is an art form, just like painting is, just like sculpture is, just like music is. You grew up in China. You're from Hunan Province, which is in the southern part of China, and you were born into a family of artists. You began your training as a Chinese opera performer at the age of 9, very young, and you learned how to sing and dance, paint your own makeup, and you worked with a troupe of performers. In addition to your opera training, you learned how to paint traditional Chinese watercolor, ink style, as well as Western style painting, and you also learned how to write calligraphy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your art and your art training?
I really like visual art. So you can see right now, here is one of my recent works. What I did is, I usually do my work is play music, let the music transform to my body, then I start to dance and move. And let my movement transform to the brush, sometimes no brush, my hands, my feet, my body, to the canvas. Then let the movement, let the music leave on the canvas, have a 3 dimension, not just about visual element. Also you can see the brush have the movement. Also you can feel the music as well. And the piece be add more dimensions. And this is my recent works. And also in the past, I do different kind of work. That's why I did a long time ago. You see a little bit in more traditional way and the classical way use about figure, about the portraits, and a lot of influence from the Western style. Until now, it's a huge different steps.
So now you've been living in the US for about 15 years, and you've accomplished a lot. You've created 10 major dance pieces, and your dancers have performed them all over the country and all over the world.
Yes, my company is 10 years now, and we have been in Kennedy Center so many times. And also we travel internationally, like Australia, New Zealand, and Israel, and Slovenia, and like Serbia, and Budapest, all the places in Europe as well. Those journey, this traveling, really helped me to know the people I never met before, or the culture I never understand before, or share my dance work to the audience. That really helped me grow, also how the company to grow as well.
You created 3 works, each one of them inspired by the trips that you took to Tibet, Cambodia, and Silk Road in China. And the name of the work is called Re, Part 1, which is about Tibet, Re Part 2, which is about Cambodia, and Re Part 3, about the Silk Road and modern China. Okay, so let's begin by talking a little bit about Re 1 and Tibet. Can you tell us about the landscape and the Tibetans that you met along the way?
Yes, in Tibet, you can see some photos here right now that really, really high mountains and beautiful, and some mountain like snow, some mountain just like nothing. You don't grow anything because the high altitudes, you have no grass can grow, also no animals. But some places are beautiful. And the people, like this old lady I met just in Tibet, she has beautiful wrinkles. You can see her face, her skin, and really interesting color and quality. And also, I went to all the temples, meet with the monks. They are chant, they are taking class. Then class are talking about life. Everybody talking about life every day. It's a really interesting class. Also, the people I met on the street, they have a beautiful smile and a really innocent face and a bright light. They really brought some really spiritual quality in their life. And also you will see a lot of prayer flags hanging on the road, on the mountains. It's from the Tibetan Buddhism prayers flags. And beautifully, around the mountains, those images so important and for my journey, and also the feelings by the people you talk, and the things you're thinking by yourself, and those are really important, information I took back.
Right. The Tibetans are devout Buddhists, and their lives revolve around their spiritual practice. They pray in beautiful temples decorated with beautiful objects, beautiful Buddhist objects, all kinds of Buddhist iconography, and they practice. They have particular practices, such as creating a mandala out of colorful sand, which takes days and days to create. It's a painstaking, almost meditative activity where they lay down the colorful sand into the pattern of the mandala. And once they finish this, which takes a long time to make, they destroy it as a way to illustrate that everything in the world is temporary and impermanent. So for example, I'll give you an everyday example. It snows. The snow piles up on the ground. It melts, so it's no longer on the ground. You don't see the snow anywhere. It turns into water. It nourishes the ground, and then eventually it helps the grass to grow, and so on and so on. So there's a cycle. You see something, then it changes. It's no longer there. It becomes something else. In Re 1, you begin the performance with a mandala on the stage, and then the dancers destroy it. Why don't we take a look at that?
What you're seeing right now is a mandala cover entire stage. When the dancers destroy the mandala, this piece starts. Also, when audience walk into theater, you will see all the dancers to lay on the mandala on the floor. It takes a long time to finish. Then as soon as the show starts, dancer will be destroyed and dance on top of the mandala. And the mandala is made of little tiny papers, not real sand. And also have different colors with lighting. You will see also the background have the clouds. Actually, I took pictures in Tibet of the sky and project in the back, the moving clouds in the back. The dancers, you can see, they are studying kind of meditative way to move their bodies on top of the mandala. You just see little sections about the real one. You will see the dancers dancing on top of mandala. That's why I'm using mandala and the music for this piece, because I like the mandala when you're studying. You know, it's a really important element in Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, and also the music while using is the non-chanting in the temples. After many times they chant, they start singing. And I think it's really interesting that develop kind of their own music, their own voice, their own sound. And those music are so important because they find deep in the emotionally and spiritually, they come out this kind of beautiful way to singing. And I think it's really interesting to use that to be the background of the piece, of a dance piece, and also use the mandala as the basic set.
And it seems like the whole stage is breathing.
Yes.
And the breathing, this whole emphasis on the breathing comes from the fact that when you go to Tibet, if you go to the capital of Tibet, which is Lhasa, which is situated in the Himalayan mountains, you're way above sea level, at least 10,000 feet above sea level, which means that the level of oxygen is very low. It makes it hard to breathe. So if you go to Everest, for example, it's very hard to breathe. Same thing while you're traveling around in Tibet. And you're forced to slow down, to breathe very slowly. Otherwise, you're going to lose your breath very quickly and get dizzy. And did you experience that lack of oxygen and that heavy gravity feeling when you were there?
Yes, this is something I really take a little while to get adjusted. You know, this making me thinking about us. The breath actually really affect our body. Really helped me to understanding. Oh, okay, breath going to change our body, our physical movements as well. That's why I started using breath to develop some technique to use that to develop some really interesting movements. At the same time, the gravity is so strong in that place, feel everything so heavy. That also is one of the concepts I'm using for my dance piece. Here, I'm going to introduce you to a little demonstration as my dancer to show you how the breath and the gravity take over, see what kind of movement come out of her body. Here is a little section you're going to look at. Thank you, Cecily, thank you. And you see what she just did is all the movements come from her breath and her way. Take her down and down. Inhale by her back. Exhale, take her down. This kind of movement only leads by your breath. Gravity, you can see it. It doesn't see this kind of, the gesture movement we see usually. That's the interesting, search about movement. That's kind of, one of the elements I'm using for my piece. Here, I would like to show you a little bit more dance and have more dancers come on stage to show you how the movement goes through by this technique to support them move.
Hum, 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 hey, hey. Hum, na, ne, te, ma, na, mo, de, ma, je, la, de, ta, me, go. Ter, de, je, ye, go, la, zong, kan, zong, ma, le, wang, de, de. Cha, ye, me, ga, le, mu, be, ze, be, ze, zong, wang, de, de. Cha, ye, me, ma, ya, ye, de, be, la, de, wang, de, de. To, le, zhe, ba, jie, wa, beng, zhe, be, kan, zhe, ta, ma, yong. Yan, zhe, kan, zhe, ka, ma, ye, le, jie, kan, zhe, ba, ma, bu. Me, ba, ya, ye, za, ma, ye, me, ba, le, bu, ngar, ma, zhong.
Thank you, dancers. Thank you. You just see some parts, movements from the first section, read part 1 about Tibet, of the flow by the breath, by the gravity. This, you can taste it how I transform my experience to a dance walk.
So another inspiring trip that you took was to Cambodia to visit the ancient ruins of the Khmer Empire dating from the 9th to the 13th centuries. And as you can see from the map, Cambodia is located in Southeast Asia between Vietnam and Thailand. The ancient Khmers built spectacular temples out of stone in the middle of the jungle. And these beautiful temples, which were Buddhist and Hindu as well, became the center of the Khmer Empire until it fell around the 13th century. Can you tell us a little bit about this trip that you took to Cambodia, about the visual elements that you saw, the beautiful temples, as well as the people?
Yes, I went to Cambodia in 2006. It really, inspired me by everything you're seeing, even the sound. I have a record with me, and it's really interesting. Now, we all take cameras, but sometimes I think it's really interesting the sound, the place you go, the environment. I took all the sound from the birds, the jungles. At the same time, I take pictures from the whatever you're seeing, and also the people you met. I really talk to them. At the same time, help me to understand the people, where they live, how they live, and also look back the history of this country, and make me thinking about this place a lot. And those kind of inspire me to think about building a new piece called Re Part 2.
Why don't we take a look at the opening segment on a DVD clip from Marie Part 2, and you'll notice right at the beginning all the really interesting sounds of birds, and then followed by traditional Cambodian music.
Yes, we just saw here a little clip from Real Part 2. You see all the dance kind of connected. The inspiration from this section is from the handcrafts on top of the temples. And you will see the temples have a lot of little patterns of all the human bodies, animals, and flowers, natures, that kind of, combine everything together. They make a really unique patterns by the artists from Cambodia. I think that's really unique, interesting, and I use that concept to build my dance piece as well. I have all my dance connected and moving each other around, and at the same time have the Cambodian folk music in behind. That make the whole piece have some really folk, element. At the same time, you adapt the patterns to your movements.
When you were walking around the temples, you came across children who were just kind of hanging out because they didn't go to school. They don't go to school because they don't have enough money to go to school. They don't have enough money to pay for pencils and notebooks and textbooks. And so they sell things to help raise money for their schooling. And you recorded their voices saying things like, "Will you buy this bracelet from me, 3 for $1, so I can go to school?" And it was a very moving experience for you. How did you decide, when and how did you decide to incorporate that into Ritu?
I think it's really interesting, once you're recording things, you never thought you were going to use that for music for your dance. We all think about how to use classical music or modern music to dance. You can use everything, every sound to be a dance productions. I use the kids to sing, running around just say selling bracelets, 3 for $1. And there's so many kids. I love this moment. I want to record the sound of the kids. At the same time, I feel so moved by the kids. They try to sell little tiny things that can raise money for them to go to school. Also, the tension on the kids is really strong. And for me, I felt really strong moved by this, moment, by the people's life. I want to create some part about 2 days and Cambodian people's life, the kids' life. Then I build a little tiny piece and part inspired by the sound and the situation of the kids. And here I want to show a little bit sections from Read Part 2 to you. Thank you, dancers. Thank you. We just see little sections, but you will say, wow, there's nothing to do with the story, but I want you to feel the tension of the movement. They are not trying to really tell the story, but actually use the movement to write what people say. Each dancers use their own language, which means where depends on the dancer, where the background, where they come from. They use the hands or feet to write 3 for $1. Can you buy it for me? And in their own language, which means they try to spell it in their body. At the same time, they have to move the emotionally to the kids' emotion, the tension. This is what I kind of fast. At the same time, you feel the intensity of the situation. That's the build kind of the modern directions, and that's how I took from that connection between the kids to the movements.
Going back to the temples, we see that after centuries, the jungle took over with trees, and these trees have gigantic external roots that grew over the monuments. And you see a relationship or a tension going on between what is nature and what is man-made, and how they are coexisting. For example, in this picture where you have a gigantic banyan tree over part of the temple and then into the courtyard. This is a very powerful image. What does it mean to you?
Well, when you see things like this in front of you, the tree is huge. You see the building right now, it's a huge temple. And you never thought the tree would grow on top of the temple, the building, or sometimes take over the temple. That just, for me, think about how powerful the human being can be and how powerful the nature can be, because they build huge temples by human, and the nature to take over easily, And really interesting that both things merge together. And also the beautiful trees went like human bodies, like snakes, they kind of curve around the building. And those beautiful feelings and those can't make me emotionally, spiritually think about more things. And from this point, I developed some sections, use the quality of the trees, the roots of the trees, to build some dance movements, also express my feelings about when I see those trees, those temples. Here I'm going to show another sections about this dance piece.
Then in 2008, Beijing, the capital of China, held the Summer Olympic Games, and you were invited to be the lead choreographer for the opening ceremonies. That must have been a highlight of your life.
Well, it is really interesting project, and I worked so long, so hard for this. And you will see, right now, the pictures here, you see all the little, spots. Actually, it's a human being. It looks like made of from computers. We have to organize everything. The total performers is 16,000. And here have 2,008 dancers in here. They have to really organize together to make one simple patterns. The collective ideas, the collectivism and concept play so much in Chinese culture, in Eastern culture. And that really helps me to understand the different culture. Those kind of things maybe only can happen in China. Think about if we do this kind of things in New York City and everybody have their own way to doing things, it's hard to make this kind of simple things together. It's just, kind of, for me, it's learning process. And definitely I learned how to make things together with big project like this. And also, for me, it's really, important part of my life as well.
And so while you were there, you took a little break and you went on a trip out to far western China, out onto the ancient Silk Road. And the ancient Silk Road was originally a network of trade routes that connected China with Europe via India and the Middle East over 2,000 years ago. And many new ideas were exchanged along the Silk Road because merchants were traveling, selling their wares back and forth, and with them they carried their religion, their language, their way of living. And all of this mixed with the people that they met along the way. And this wasn't an easy journey to travel along the Silk Road. You had to travel through deserts and mountains and very difficult terrain to get from one point to the other. Do you think now that China is modernizing very quickly, many new ideas from the West are being exchanged with ideas from China, just like it was done along the Silk Road 2,000 years ago?
Yes, my journey on the Silk Road, I took 40 days just traveling. It's not easy and really busy every day. Get up early, get back really late, and sometimes I take 16 hours drive in the bumpy road and to go to somewhere. I learned so much about what's happening 2,000 years ago when China and the cultural exchange to the West through this Silk Road. And also, really good for me is to think about what's happening today. Actually, we can see, we know China's growth so fast. Right now, China is like as modern, even more than Manhattan. The building is much taller, much more modern than the Manhattan. You may never thought about that. When the airport in Beijing is like you are in Star Wars, because the completely crazy at the buildings, like a flying things going on. That's the modern China. That making me think about, now maybe it's the new Silk Road happening today. And you see a lot of Western and designers go to China, and a lot of things come from China made. Like a lot of things we buy from today, or a lot of things made in China. All the ideas exchange again. That making me think about, maybe this a new Silk Road happens right now.
We're living a new version of exchanging ideas with the internet, with travel, with human contact, and we're really living in a 21st century Silk Road. And is that the main idea behind part 3?
Yes, after working in the Olympics and also traveling in Silk Road, and I started making the third piece called part 3. Part 3. And here, I'm going to show you something first, and we'll talk about after that. Here is another demonstration from part 3. Thank you, dancers. Thank you. We just see some little sections from part 3. It looks like, it's really don't know what's going on, but I'll explain to you a little bit. Actually, this piece I'm not taking by the image. Like part 2, we use the trees as the handcraft of focal work to transform the image to movements. But this piece is work on the structure of our society between the East and the West, about the exchange of cultures, about what's happening in today's China. And a lot of Western concepts come to China, and also West Chinese ideas come to outside of China. I played the unity of the collectivism of Chinese society with the Western idea of individualism about creativity's individual thoughts. That's how they merge in this piece. You will see the collective energy against individuals in this piece, in this last section. Especially in the beginning when the people against leaning to each other, the kind of sharing each other. It's like in China, or also in some countries like Italy, the family, they're sharing so much, they're kind of supporting each other a lot. But at the same time, we also question, when you're sharing too much, you start to rely on each other so much. Then we need to be a little bit more individual somehow. And those kind of questions all dealing with our society in the Eastern country or the Western country. That's why I transfer the idea to movement. And that's why you see something to do with this kind of movement, this kind of concept on stage.
So modern dance is abstract. What you're saying is that it's not a story per se. It's not about your journey along the Silk Road or necessarily about creating the performance for the opening ceremony of the Olympics, but it's about ideas that you are able to extract from that, the essence of that, and then turn that into movement.
Yes, and today, right now, we especially young people who want to know the story. We have enough stories, and we like abstract things, more interesting things to do with our culture, with our digital, life, and what different centuries right now. And this is why I also took this way. We're not talking my journey. I talk about a concept, tends to really abstract movements. Then you see the tension. You get more interesting what's behind, the ideas. The next things, I would like to show a little more about the individual, how that plays in my work, which means this point, you pay a little attention, the dancers have to close their eyes, dance, and just be in your own world. You have to close, do whatever movement you want. Of course, they have a game to play when they're doing the dance movements, the steps. Then this, but how free you can get when you close eyes, you can be moving around. And you will see the next sections also from part 3. Here it is. Thank you, dancers. Thank you. Thanks. I want to introduce you my dancers. The Brandon and Cecily and Joe, Andrew, Sarah, and Jenna. Thank you so much. Thank you, dancers. Thanks. You just see that part when the dancer close the eyes to be so free, moving around, do movements, and in the end, how far you can go, just everything by yourself, individually, and you sometimes in certain place, certain things we do need to rely on or helping each other to support each other. That's why in the end, you will see the two dancers merge together and push against the dancer in the middle, then push her up. If they have three people have fear each other, only have one center. If some dancer walk faster or someone walk slower, the middle dancer can drop in the middle. Because against in the between, with three people have feels like one person, the walking, and all the way. For this kind of moment, we can't do that by one person, individuals have to feel the collectivism. And that's how I posed in my Part 3.
Shen Wei, thank you very much for sharing with us the background behind Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. And thank you to our student audience for being with us today. Thanks also to the viewers from across the country for tuning into the program. Goodbye.